Hello and welcome to the SC20 News Desk. I'm Rich Finlinson and I'm here with my colleague, Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Hakkarinen, looking forward to interviewing attendees at the SC20 conference this year for the News Desk.
Hi, I'm Karlyn Harrod, and this year I'm a member of the Students at SC Committee, working with the lead student volunteers, and I'm here from the University of Notre Dame.
Hi everyone. I'm Jacques. I work at Google as a software engineer. At SC, I'm involved with the Speed Mentoring Program.
I'm Christine Harvey. I'm the organizer for the Students at SC program at SC20 this year, and during the day I work as a HPC engineer for the MITRE Corporation.
Hi, I'm Aaron Smith. I also work for the MITRE Corporation, and I'm helping out Christine with outreach.
Excellent. Thank you all for joining us virtually here today. I have a few questions I'd like to ask you about the conference. The first one, could I direct towards Dr. Christine Harvey? I'm wondering, in our global pandemic and the way that COVID-19 has affected our working from home and learning from home, why is the SC20 conference so vital to students this year?
So when the pandemic started, everything got canceled and everything moved online, and students were sent home from universities, and even internships were canceled. So there's all these things that are really critical parts of building your career and trying to, enter the workforce and things like that for students that has just been put on hold or canceled. And it's been a really difficult time, I think, especially for students when it comes to networking, learning, trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. So I think for us, it's more important than ever to build the program at SC20 to figure out, how students can, enter the workforce and how they can get interested in HPC. There's a great technical program. We have career options at the exhibit hall. We'll have a job fair. There's all sorts of networking events. Most students are at home or they're, sitting in their dorm room, not attending classes. So I think we're trying to create a venue to make all that possible for students still.
Those are some excellent plans, and that was my next question. So I'll open it up to the whole group. What are some of your plans and projects for this year's conference specifically for students? I know you have speed mentoring and some volunteers and some outreach. Tell me a little bit about what you have planned.
So I can kind of start with an overview of the program. So in a way, everything's completely different because we're doing it virtually, but essentially we're trying to bring the exact same program to life in an online only format. So we'll still have a job fair and that'll be open. We're expanding it actually to students, postdocs, and then professionals will also be able to attend. There will be a virtual job board with careers. We're also going to have resume and pitch workshops to help people work on those things that they can kind of convey over Zoom calls. We'll also have networking events. I think Jacques can talk a little bit more about that. But in addition to speed mentoring, we're having a paired mentor protege program, as well as peer mentoring for students involved in our cohorts. And then I think the big thing is just the conference itself. There's been a ton of work in getting the tech program papers and everything moved online for people. We're also going to have special students at SC sessions. There's going to be a designated spot in the conference platform. There will be a whole page in the conference for students at SC where you can find links to things that are relevant for students and different, like a whole schedule of programs specifically curated for students to learn about career options in HPC, learn some new skills and all sorts of fun stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree with Christine. I mean, I feel like one of the reasons we have this is like, or why it's important virtually, it's the same reason why it's an awesome conference every year. It's all the different talks from all over different spectrum. You get to learn new information, get to meet new people. For me, when I was a student, this is one of my favorite conferences, just because of like the diversity. I always felt like more energized afterwards. And I think that's why, we want to look at sort of like the mentoring networking aspects. As Christine mentioned, we have a mentor project program. So that's sort of like a one-on-one pairing where you have a student paired up with a more experienced mentor based on, like interest, background, all of these things. And then during the conference, we also have a speed mentoring event. So during this event, it's sort of a couple different rounds where you have different mentors and proteges interacting, talking about different things from like career, research to work-life balance, just getting together. And I think that's one of the important things here is to actually network with all of these different folks. Sort of like virtually get out of your house, share ideas. And I think that's the venue we still want to create here.
As far as these student cohorts, we're still going to have student volunteers assisting with sessions, and we've found virtual ways for them to be able to assist with our virtual conference. We've had lead student volunteers helping with the planning since sometime this summer. In addition, our student cluster competition is going to be completely virtual this year. So we're calling it the VCC for Virtual Student Cluster Competition instead of just the SCC. And this year, the entire competition is going to have the same components that it normally has. So benchmarking, a variety of applications, and the reproducibility challenge. But this year, everything is going to take place on the Microsoft Azure cloud. And then this year, we have a new program, which is called the HPC Immersion, which brings together students who have already in the computer science field with the intention of opening their eyes to the new world of HPC.
And I guess just a few more things to add. I'm not sure if we touched on the resume workshop, which is something that we've been able to do in the past, but that's always a good turnout with students who aren't sure of their resumes. And it's always good to get a second opinion on how your resume looks before you send it off to that career that you want to start, or that company that you've always wanted to work for. So that's something that students can always look forward to. And then this year, High School Tours is actually going to take a slight turn since things are virtual. We're hoping to have some demonstrations from a couple of local universities and different companies that have some things that they can showcase to students.
What an excellent collection of activities. You have career support, you have collaboration through competition, and opportunities to make connections, all very valuable skills for our future 21st century workforce. Now, this sounds like an excellent event, and I really admire the way that you're taking this and putting a virtual spin on it, because even after this pandemic is over, would you agree that we are going to find ourselves in the future working in a more virtual world? How will this conference prepare students for that experience?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think that I know at least where Aaron and I work, they're realizing that we can do a lot of things remotely, and they're getting to be much more supportive of people that aren't necessarily on site or in their office every day. And I think that, you know, learning these skills, we just had a networking from home event hosted for our students at SC. We had a webinar, it's up on YouTube now, but you know, how do you reach out to people and connect? So if you're not going to conferences and meeting people in person, and you know, people can always go to conferences. Every once in a while, there's going to be something that happens in your life where you're going to have to miss out on an event, if it's the pandemic or not. So I think that those skills that we're trying to cover really are going to, you know, to just, I think, last a long time and really hold their value, you know, as kind of life hits students in addition to, you know, COVID and everything else that we have going on.
Yeah, I mean, I keep on joking. There's probably going to be a lot of dissertations being written about the effect of working remote on everything. You know, this is, you know, beyond it being, you know, like a terrible event, like this is an event that nobody could have simulated, right? So this is so interesting from a while being a, you know, global pandemic. But yeah, no, I think it's one of the things where, as people mentioned, like this might actually make some of the conferences more accessible, like folks who can travel and actually participate remotely. And yeah, I think like the social aspect is one which I think everybody's still sort of struggling with. And I think like conferences are trying different approaches to ensure you have that same meet in the whole rooms kind of effect, you know, like bumping into somebody randomly at a stand. That's sort of difficult, or we haven't really focused on simulating before. But I think it will change quite a lot in terms of, you know, how things work. And it's going to be very curious, like 3 years from now, how conferences look.
Yeah.
And with our student volunteers, they're able to sign up for shifts to actually help with some of the runnings of the conference. So that's going to give them the experience of like, how does this work a little bit behind the scenes? And that can be some valuable skills going forward in our virtual conference world, virtual class world, virtual everything world that seems to be happening right now.
Yeah, to build on what Karly was saying, for our student volunteers program, the lead student volunteers have actually been working on planning webinars ahead of the conference to help the other student volunteers that might be brand new to SC, you know, learn about the conference and plan. So I think there was a building your LinkedIn profile workshop recently. There will be another one on making the most of the conference. And so those are actually run by student volunteers. So the student volunteer gets this experience of, you know, how do you schedule something in Zoom, and how do you get buy-in, and how do you advertise it, and how do you find speakers, and what sort of email do you write to invite somebody, you know, professional to come to your event. So there's also we've been doing a lot of skill building, you know, almost unintentionally in that area too. And I think that those skills are going to carry forward very well.
What are some of those ideas for how you do make the most of the conference when it's such a new thing?
I think being open is one. I mean, honestly, I feel like there's like a lot of these events, and you see something pop up, like virtual coffee hour or whatever. It's go to it. Explore the new platforms. I think it's just being sort of like willing to embrace the new approaches and try. Yes, it's not the normal way of communicating. You have to type here, maybe set up a video chat. Video can be awkward, but I think you sort of be open, and it is different. It is going to be adjustment. In a way, sort of like, I think that's the main part. Is just sort of trying to embrace it, and we're behind the camera. It's still a human, right? So it's still like a human interaction. It's still a lot of the same communication that we're used to. But so it will take some change. But I think it's just a case of being open to trying it new.
Yeah, I like that point a lot. And I think for learning about the conference, so if you've never been to SC before, we have SC newcomer sessions, and we did these in person. We normally have 2 sessions, and they're going to have them online as well too. So there will be a video you can watch to kind of get the fire hose of everything that they're going to be offering at SC. So I think that'll be perfect for anyone that's going to be a first-time attendee. And then whenever I go to a conference, what I like to do is I like to look at the calendar of all the events, and I like to pick out my talks. And the first round I go through and I pick like every single thing that sounds interesting. And then I look at my calendar and I'm supposed to be 10 places at once. And then I sort of filter it down, but then eventually I just kind of make a game time decision. Do I want to go to a talk? Do I want to do a tutorial? Do I really just want to go get coffee, or do I need to kind of turn off my computer for a little bit and just take a break? So I think the other thing will be taking breaks will be important. You don't have to be at your desk all day. A lot of the content's going to be available later. So kind of keep track of where you are mentally, and get up and take a walk in the middle of the day. Normally at SC, I feel like I get 20,000 steps a day or something like that. So this will be a new experience, just kind of sitting around on my chair all day.
Christine makes a great point about the schedule. When you look at it all, it can be very, very overwhelming, in my opinion. There's so many events going on. It's so hard to choose what to do. And I think, if you look at it one day at a time, break it down a little bit, like Christine suggested, that's a great, and then add it to your own calendar.
Yeah, those are all good points to make about the conference, but it's always worthwhile attending, and I'm always excited to tell people that I was excited to be a part, and being on the other side of the fence now, actually being on the committee is like worthwhile as well. But it's always worth to note, and I guess a good thing to remember though, like since things are virtual, like Christine said, like you'll be able to go back and like watch the content later if you are a little bit overwhelmed. And for a lot of people, this is the way that people are keeping in touch with like people that they work with in the past or previous colleagues and things like that. So that's a big piece of it too. It's your way to kind of still be out and interacting with folks.
Yeah, I think actually that's a very good point. I mean, like, still treat it like a conference. Make time for it. Make time in your day. Don't try and task switch between work and conference. It gets difficult. Enjoy the conference. There's a lot of material. It is a fire hose. So actually making time for it is super important.
Yeah. I think kind of to build on what Aaron said, normally I don't spend a lot of time thinking about who's going to be at SC. I just show up and I see you get to run into people and you get to say hi and things like that. And that will be a little bit different this year. So it might be worthwhile for people to, if you know someone you normally see at SC and you look forward to seeing and talking to them, try to reach out to them via, social media or something else. I think the conference platform will have a chat feature, but I think it'd be worth it to reach out to those people that normally you look forward to seeing every year. They might not be a big part of your regular life, but can be, a social or, professional connection at the conference. Take the time to reach out to them.
We've talked about the idea that this is kind of a fire hose. That's actually more of the way it was in the past, right? Where it's confined to a period of 5 days. The conference is running longer and the archives are available longer. So really people can take a little sip out of that fire hose better this year than in an actual in-person conference.
That's true. Yeah. I think there will be opportunities to catch up on stuff, but it will also be a little overwhelming. I don't know how many hours of content. I think the communications team will have like an official word on that, but I guess when you attend in person, you're limited to those 5 days, 8 hours, those 5 days. So you're limited to, you can only attend 40 hours of content. And now you can attend quite possibly the maximum amount of hours of content. So I guess the fire hose is just running for longer.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I had a previous conference where it's the same, where like normally it's multiple tracks, you have to decide, you have to make a call. I didn't because it's all recorded. So I kept going to the conference for the next 2 weeks after the conference ended. But so yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to see, you know, like it's a new experience, but you're right. It does give people more time to sort of like pace themselves and being able to consume the content at the pace that, you know, they can do.
Yeah. There's some live events, so things like Aaron mentioned, the resume workshop, and there will be a pitch workshop as well, the mentoring program. I think a lot of that. So if I were to give advice, I would kind of prioritize doing the live things and making sure you have time for those. Other things like there's the keynote every year, and the keynote at SC is always, I think, one of the most exciting things. So it'll be recorded and you can probably watch it later, but you know, you want to be able to have all those conversations with people. And I always, you know, watch Twitter that whole time too, to see what people think and to see what the questions are. So that would be something else I think you would want to prioritize attending in person, or not in person, watching as it happens.
I was going to say, some of those live events will actually be rebroadcasted one more time for our audience across our big old pond. And so we'll have more global engagement too. And that's another really great benefit of us being virtual, is that we can reach more students all across the world.
Yeah.
Well, as we get ready to conclude here, I'm just wondering if each of you would like to talk about how the conference has personally been an opportunity for you to grow.
Oh, that's a good one. So I think for me, it's been like a huge part of my life and my career plan. So I first attended SC in 2010. My family, I don't really know anyone in engineering, so this was really the first introduction for me into the big world of computer science. And after I came in SC10 with my university, I came back as a student volunteer in 2011. I was actually assigned at student volunteer with Jacques in 2012, and we got to set up Wi-Fi access points all over the convention center in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And I was able to find internships through this. I ended up getting my job that I currently have at MITRE through the SC conference based on internships I had. And now I think it's a big part of my life and my community. I spend, you know, a few hours every week in meetings with these people. They're really pleasant to work with when I work on planning the conference. And I really look forward to getting to go to SC every year and just see different personal and professional contacts that I know across the industry. And I think it's just been a huge experience for me.
You know, I agree for me as well. I mean, I think I've been a volunteer at SC a few times. So the first time I went to supercomputing was as a student volunteer. And it was, I think, the largest computer science, you know, conference I've been to. You know, just it was so much fun. I have a lot of friends from over the years that, you know, I met there, like different volunteers, like Christine mentioned, like we were working together, setting up Wi-Fi access points all over the place. You know, and picking them up again if people bump them over. You know, and it's just like a couple of other friends that, you know, I still keep on contact with. I chat to like once or twice a week still. I have a friend that almost like every year, it's almost like our reunion is SC. You know, we go, we meet, we spend like a couple of days together going to different talks randomly. So I think it's been great for me in terms of just getting to know a lot of things in the area. There's so many interesting things going on that you normally don't have time to look at all of the different things. Like the keynotes help a lot. But yeah, for me, it's been a lot of it has been like the connections. It's been the people. It's getting to know different folks working in this area. That like supercomputing has been really great for me from that point of view.
Yeah, I can agree with that with both of you guys actually. Christine knows it was also what catapulted me into my career as well, by networking and sending my resume landed me my job at MITRE. And I guess the social aspect of attending SC a couple of times as a student volunteer and as a committee member, you get exposure to different people that you never otherwise would meet. And some of those people are mentors to me to this day. And the interesting piece is you get to see them outside of the professional realm, like, you know, the different lunches and things that you can go to. You can kind of have a more intimate setting of talking to them, asking them about how did they get to where they are, or what was the change in their career. They realized that this was their calling that they should be doing, or what sparked their interest. So those are some of the other things that I always look forward to. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know who's going to change your direction on your career path just because they're so inspirational to you.
And this is my first year being a member of the committee and the Students at SC committee working under Christine. And I'm currently finishing up writing my dissertation and quarantined in a house. And, you know, my SC community is like my community in my life right now. So, you know, I've made a lot of really great connections and through all of our planning meetings. And I really feel like those are going to stay and continue. And we've all shared this unique experience of planning a conference virtually, and we never thought we would do this. And honestly, I think, you know, our relationships will be stronger for that.
Research that I've been reading has said that although this telecommuting world that we're in now has increased productivity, there's a real disparity with accessibility. But it sounds like what you've done with the conference is spun that and made it even more accessible to people in different locations, people who can't travel and people who might have time limitations. So congratulations on that. You've taken a challenge and created not a different normal, but a better normal. And that's really exciting to see.
Thank
for
you.
Our
it's been a challenge, but I think we're just trying to make the best out of a really bad and crazy, hectic situation. And I think the whole students at SC team has, you know, really kind of moved mountains to make this happen, with switching the entire cluster competition to be virtual and trying to figure out what students can do for volunteers virtually, and how do you give somebody a mentor that they never get to meet in person, or they may never get to meet in person. You know, it's been a logistics adventure. I won't say nightmare, I'll say adventure. But you know, it's really cool to kind of see what we can do and how we can expand the program now. You know, obviously I'm really disappointed we're not getting to do this in person, but I'm excited for what we're going to get to do remotely.
Thank you, Dr. Harvey. And I just want to say, like, I think it would be really exciting to talk with you all again when the conference has passed, and in the future hear about all the lessons learned from this one to make the next conferences even better with this blended, maybe hybrid environment of both virtual and in person.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll need a break after this one ends.
That's great. Well, thank you each for participating with us today on the SC20 News Desk.